Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Hesse Bros Pod. It's your boy Brent Hesse joining me, Luke Hesse. We're fired up for some more football. The NFL season just rolling by. We got teams clinching playoff berths, clinching divisions, all sorts of it. A bunch of teams eliminated, a bunch of teams trying to self-eliminate themselves. We'll get into that and more, Luke. Unfortunately, the Lions, the winning streak came to a close at the hands of Buffalo. That's exactly where we've got to start this week.
Yeah, it was a tough game. It was hard fought. Jared Goff had one of his best games of the season, but the defense just could not stop the Bills at all. And we ended up taking the L. But at the end of the day, I think it's in the best interest for the Lions to take one loss before the end of the season. You know, kind of like what a lot of the players are saying right now. They're like, you get kind of numb to winning whenever you do it 11 weeks in a row. So you take the loss, you feel what it's like, and then now you're ready. And they're not going to feel that way the rest of the year. Everyone's talking about the injuries on defense, but I feel like this is the time where Dan Campbell, Aaron Glenn can, rally around the troops, get the people in the positions they need, and we're still going to be able to get some of these players back. There's a decent amount of them that are season ending, but at the end of the day, the Lions still have such a great offense that can keep them in a game with anybody. And we saw that last week.
Yeah, they tried to stay in the game. I mean, they were always really chasing, never really were actually in the game, in my opinion. Late in that one, they were always down multiple scores, unless whenever they had the ball, they were down multiple scores, that's for sure. So it's just tough to see. The defense looks really decimated. That's second straight week that they've kind of gotten beat up. I mean, they played good against the Packers in the first half. Second half, Packers kind of did whatever they wanted. And obviously, Josh Allen did whatever he wanted on Sunday. And then they just got worse. Aleem McNeil, there's their best defensive lineman left this season after Hutchinson, no doubt about it. Now he's out as well. You've got Knuckles. He's out. Just got eliminated by Dr. Eggman, Josh Allen. And so that's tough. So honestly, I mean, shoot me straight, Luke. How many injuries is it going to take before the Lions are just cooked? I mean, it just unfortunate. It's part of nature of football.
The only way we're cooked is if Jared Goff goes down. That's the only way because this offense runs through him. We can afford losing Montgomery because we still have one of the best running backs in the league with Jahmyr Gibbs. And I know this offense can keep us in games. And we're still going to have that great offensive line with the rushing attack. So obviously, it would be great to have all your players ready. But at the end of the day, the defense will be able to do enough to get our offense back the ball and put up more points than the other team, which is what it's all about. And to your point about the Lions defense looking terrible against the Bills, let's think about how the Rams defense looked about against the Bills just the week prior, right? The Bills absolutely run up the score on them. And at the end of the day, the Bills end up losing. And then this past week, the Rams allowed 6 points to the San Francisco 49ers. I think it's more of a just in the moment right now thinking, oh, yeah, this defense can't stop anybody. No, we just couldn't stop the MVP of the league, who we most likely won't even have to play in the Super Bowl, given the other teams in the AFC. So at the end of the day, am I really that worried about it? Not really.
Is that just a Is that a compliment to the Kansas City Chiefs, Luke? Oh, nice guy. He's trying to soften me up so I don't say anything more bad about the Lions and say that I'm think they're cooked. Well, I don't think they're cooked. I just think that their path to winning just is so narrow now. They used to be able to win in a multitude of ways. They could win pounding the rock. They could win with the strong physical defense, forcing turnovers, just dominating teams. They could win with Jared Goff. Now I feel like there's only one way they can win, and that is with the passing game, whether it's out of the backfield to Gibbs, whether it's over the middle to Laporta, to Amon-Ra, deep to Jamo, but it's all on the passing game now because they're going to have to be able to throw the ball to keep up with teams because they are going to be in shootouts. I do think their defense is in trouble, and that's no fault of anybody, no fault of Dan Campbell, no fault of anybody on the defense in particular. It's just the unfortunate nature of football that sometimes teams do get decimated with injuries, and you can only lose so much before you just go from being a great team to an average team because you lose so many of your great players that make you that sort of team. And I think that's where the Lions are at. They're it's a very narrow pathway. Obviously, they're in a good spot, still first place in the NFC, but it's no guarantee that they hold on to the bye, much less the division. So it's going to be a lot tougher for the Lions going forward. And, I hate that. The Lions were my pick in the NFC, and now I'm having to rethink that one. But not all is lost in Detroit, but a lot is lost, McNeil, Montgomery, Hutchinson, the whole defense, basically. But we'll see.
We will see, and you don't have to rethink it that hard, Brent. It'll still be the Lions in New Orleans. And to your point, the only person you can really blame, or the only thing, is whoever made the schedule for the Lions and put the bye week in week 5. I feel like that's the main thing that's catching up to them right now. But anyways, we'll get into more Lions talk later. Any other games from the past week you want to touch on, Brent?
Well, another team that had a week 5 bye, the Kansas City Chiefs, who now sit alone at 13-1, the best record in the NFL. And would you imagine that? They won a game by multiple scores, defeating the Cleveland Browns. Kansas City just absolutely turning over poor Jameis Winston. We love Jameis, but sometimes he just doesn't love himself. And the Lord did not deliver him from turnovers on Sunday. He was getting picked off left and right. I mean, McDuffie, he was using the Lord to intercept the ball. He's just looking up in the sky saying, "Tell me where the ball is going to be." And luckily, thanks to the Jumbotron, it told him, "Oh, it's coming your way." He turns around, picks off the ball. So we love to see that for Kansas City. A nice, comfortable win. No concerns at all after a 21-7 victory over the Browns. And the number one seed basically looks like it's Kansas City's.
Yeah, I'm sure there's nothing to worry about with the Chiefs. Not like their quarterback went down or anything. And apparently he's playing next week. But the one thing that Jameis Winston didn't get delivered from, he should have asked for this, is instead of pick sixes, just make it all picks. And then at the end of the day, he threw so many of those that he didn't even get delivered from being benched in the third quarter. So that's a rough time for Jameis. I hope to see him on another team soon, but who knows after some of these performances where he just gives away the game half the time.
And now to Mahomes, of course, that is the thing that I have to address. And, after the game, even actually as he was hobbling off the field, I told my buddy that I was watching the game with, I was like, well, let's just sit Mahomes the rest of the season, put him on ice for the regular season, have him ready for the playoffs. But it's Mahomes, man. He is a fighter. He's going to work to get on the field. And if the doctors clear him and he clears him and the coaching staff clears him, which clearly that's all happened, he's a full participant in practice both Tuesday and Wednesday as we're recording this episode. So he has not missed any practice time. Yeah, he's going to go for Saturday, and he's probably going to be just as good, if not better than ever. Some of his best games of his career have been in the playoffs on one ankle. You know, that is unfortunately Mahomes' one weakness. He's Steph Curry with the ankles, boy. Like he just does not have good, healthy ankles, and it's just like Steph, but he is going to fight through it, and I'm got no reason to doubt that he'll be fine. I just hope that he can, nothing worse happens on it.
Yeah, well, the one reason I would have Brent, and I want to know your thoughts on this, is that offensive line has just been papered. They've been getting absolutely just blown by. Mahomes has like the most, he's gotten sacked the most times of any quarterback in the league this year. And so, what's to say he's not going to, if he can't move in the pocket the way that he usually does, what's to say he's not going to get hit again or sacked more and also possibly get re injured? Are you not worried about that?
Definitely worry. There's a lot of concern. And the Texans, that's one of their strengths of their team is their pass rush. They're second in the NFL in sacks. They're really good around the edges, and that's where Kansas City struggles. Their left tackle, they've not been able to figure out all season long. Currently, the Chiefs have their left guard playing left tackle, Joe Tooney, and putting in a new left guard because their tackles, the two tackles they've tried, then they sign a third one. He got hurt. Then they don't trust either of their two young tackles right now. Tooney did not allow a sack last week though at left tackle against Jade or against Miles Garrett. So, that's impressive to me that Garrett had was at pressures, he was in the backfield a lot, but didn't get a sack. The Chiefs did not allow a sack last week. So I like that. I mean, it's gonna be tough. Obviously the game plan changes. You've got to go to more shorter things. You've got to go to more of the run game. Make sure you get the ball out of Mahomes' hand and so he doesn't suffer those things. But I trust Andy Reid and I trust Mahomes in those spots. It's going to be a different sort of game plan, but I have no reason to not believe that the Chiefs will be all right.
And I hope we're talking about a healthy Patrick Mahomes next week, but we'll see. As you know, he is one of the faces of the league, and it'll make the playoffs even that much better. Even the way they're shaping up right now, it'll be amazing no matter what. But any other games from last week, Brent?
Well, we'll just go through some of the games that were high profile and tell me whether you thought the team ended up impressing you or the losing team really let you down. So, some big games that featured two playoff teams or most likely playoff teams. We'll start with the Eagles and Steelers. Eagles now tie the Lions in the conference. Steelers lose that one. Now they're only a game up on the Ravens. Was that impressive for Philly or was that sad on Pittsburgh?
I think that was honestly, more sad for Pittsburgh, just because I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. They can't really throw the ball deep without Pickens, and maybe getting him back is going to help out enough to where they can take a step and actually be able to beat a really solid team by scoring the ball, which we haven't really seen very much of. And I mean, the Eagles are pretty solid. You know, you gotta give them their props. They're definitely one of the teams I'm worried about in the NFC, but I feel like the Steelers just they're going to have to get Pickens back out there and be able to throw the ball because we were not able to see any of that on Sunday.
Agreed. I thought it was an indictment on Pittsburgh. Not only could they not move the ball, they couldn't get the Eagles off the field. The Eagles sustained so many long drives in that game, just controlled the time of possession, and Pittsburgh really never had a shot in that one. Another one, Buccaneers at Chargers. The Bucks blow out the Chargers. Chargers hadn't allowed 30 all season. Instead, they give up 40 to Baker and the Bucks. Were the Bucks that dope or the Chargers showing their flaws?
I think, I mean, that's just a little bit of both, in my opinion. I was all over the Bucks on that one, and I figured they were a much better team going against Vegas on that. And I think it shows how limited the Chargers are in their offense right now with the current weapons that they have, especially without Dobbins, like we've been saying. The Chargers just, I don't see them winning a playoff game this year. I think they're 1 year away with having better talent on their team. And the Bucks, I feel like they're going to be a scary team. Whoever has to go there to Tampa in the first round, whether it's the Packers, Vikings, maybe even the Commanders, it's going to be a tough win no matter who's going in there. And they've played so many great teams well. I could see them playing a little bit of a lesser team Chargers like this. So I think it's just a little bit of both ways.
Yeah, for me, ultra impressed by the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield is having a top five season in the NFL. I think that that's getting overlooked is how good Baker has been as a quarterback this year. You take out Josh Allen, Lamar, Burrow, those guys, and the numbers that they're putting up. Baker is right there in the mix in that next group for what a season he's having. You know, the connection with him and Mike Evans, very impressive. Bucky Irving running well. The defense is opportunistic. It's not the best defense in the world, but coached by Bulls, they're opportunistic. Jamel Dean is a great player. They've got still a lot of those good players from that Super Bowl run a few years back. And when I start looking for a team now, I'm starting to worry about the Lions and see, okay, who do I think could win the NFC? The Buccaneers is a team that I truly think could win the conference. Baker, I trust just as much as any other quarterback in the conference, and they've got experience, they've got great talent. I like the Bucks a lot.
Yeah, and I would be right there with you. But one of the things is Chris Godwin in that game earlier in the season goes out for the year. If they still had him, I would honestly say that they might be the biggest threat to the Lions right now in the NFC, just because of how well Baker Mayfield has been playing, like you said. So it's going to be an interesting finish to the season. Let's see if how well they can keep it rolling these next few weeks.
Another game that was massive. Obviously, it eliminated one team, the Colts Broncos. Was that just self-elimination on the Colts? Anything that you're impressed with the Broncos in that one?
I really thought the Colts had it, and they looked like the better team for pretty much the entire game, except for really two plays. One where Jonathan Taylor, I mean, they're still the better team. He's just running free into the end zone. And he drops the ball to be able to go up and take a big lead. And then, of course, whenever they're trying to fight back, they call some stupid play where a wide receiver is throwing the ball laterally
Yep.
across the entire field and just hoping that Anthony Richardson catches it. One of the dumbest play calls. If you're going to call that, you can't make him throw it across the entire field laterally where the defense is all just watching it go in front of their face. One of the dumbest things I've ever seen. And I guess the Colts just hate getting into the playoffs because they're always right there at the end of the season, and they decide to shoot themselves in the foot.
Yep. Self-elimination by the Colts, no doubt about it. The Broncos really just were handed a gift that day. And one last one, the Sunday night game, Packers and Seahawks. Seahawks were a playoff team as of the current standings before they lost that game to Green Bay, but Green Bay goes into the 12th man, gets the dub. Now the Seahawks move behind the Rams in that division for first place. Seahawks no good, Packers good.
I think Seahawks are terrible, and the Packers are just what I thought they were. I mean, the Seahawks, well, especially because Sam Howell came in and they couldn't do anything. So that game was kind of a wash at the end of the day. The final score would have been probably two more touchdowns for the Seahawks, if not one, if Geno is still out there. And I think he will be back soon. So they'll still have a fighting chance. It's just all going to come down to whenever they play the Rams here in a couple weeks. But yeah, I think the Packers are kind of just what you thought they are. You know, they're able to run the ball. Jordan Love can make good plays when he needs to. And, you know, there's a lot of these teams that are popping up in the NFC like real contenders. And it's going to come down to the wire here.
Yeah, for me, it was more impressed with the Packers because I've been against Green Bay. I thought that there's too many question marks. Jordan Love looked really good in the first half of that game. He still couldn't really put him away late until, the Seahawks kind of did it themselves. But overall, good win for the Packers. There's not too many flaws on that team. They're just solid across the board. And a team that's you're gonna have to earn a victory against them, I think, when it comes to playoff time. They've proven that. Well, Luke, anything else from last week before we turn our attention to the week before Christmas and all through the league?
Let's get to it. I can hear those sleigh bells ringing, and touchdowns are going to be getting scored this weekend. What do we got?
Well, very great week of games. Thursday night, the Broncos Chargers AFC West showdown, and the winner basically clinches the playoff spot and probably the 6th seed, the loser fighting for that 7th seed, and that will be massive. Then Saturday, an awesome doubleheader. Texans, Chiefs, and Steelers, Ravens. Of course, those are the four teams that will be playing on Christmas Day, just in alternate matchups, obviously. Chiefs will be playing Steelers that day and Texans, Ravens on Christmas. So they have to play the same day because they're playing on such a short week of rest. But yeah, those three matchups right away really catch my eye. Of course, Kansas City against Houston. That's the one I'll talk about first. And we already kind of mentioned it. Mahomes on that ankle. If it were me, I'll be honest. If it were me, I don't know. I'm not in the training room. I'm not watching Mahomes warm up and how mobile he is, and if he's not. But if he was showing real physical limitations all week, I would be apt to sit him here because I think the Kansas City Chiefs can beat the Houston Texans even without Patrick Mahomes. This is just a Texans team that doesn't impress me much this season. They beat the Dolphins last week, but Tua gave them three interceptions, and the Dolphins drove the ball much better than the Houston Texans did. And the Texans have been a team this year that are a complete inverse of what I expected. I thought it was going to be a good offense, with CJ Stroud. He's got this new weapon, Diggs. Grow the connection with Nico and Tank Dell. And Joe Mixon's in the fold now. And the defense is kind of going to be the detriment. Well, it's been the opposite. The defense has been good. The defense has been their strong suit, and especially the pass rush, but it's not an all-world defense by any means, and it's been the offense. CJ's just kind of regressed a little bit, not having a terrible year, but definitely the talks of him already being a top five quarterback going into this year. There's no more talks of those right now. Stephon Diggs obviously out for the year. Nico had a great start to the year, then he's come back from injury, hasn't been as dynamic as he was early. Still a great player, and that Tank Dell connection just hasn't really hit its stride at all this year. Joe Mixon's either playing really good or really bad. There's no in between. Some games he goes off, and usually against inferior opponents, and then against tough teams he struggled. So I just don't think the Texans are at that level yet that people thought they were going to be going into this year. I like the Chiefs in this one. I think it's obviously going to be Mahomes that plays. If I thought he was if I thought it was gonna risk it, I would, say let Carson Wentz give it a go. All the Chiefs need to do was win two out of the three, and I think they could win this one even without Mahomes. I like the Chiefs to win this one by about two field goals, maybe 6 point victory.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to go with the Texans. I think this lineup, this matchup is pretty good for them. Mainly their defense versus the Chiefs offense, especially that offensive line that the Chiefs are going to be putting out there, like we already talked about. I think that the Texans are going to be able to get a lot of pressure on Mahomes or Wentz, whoever it is, and I don't see the Chiefs being able to move the ball freely, and that's going to really hurt them. And as long as CJ Stroud can just get the reps in, Nico Collins has been ramping up, coming back off that injury, and he is one of the best receivers in the league. I think that they're going to be able to get just a little bit more points than the Chiefs. I think this is a classic game against the Chiefs where it's going to come down to the wire. It's going to be, an absolute thriller, but it's going to be a low scoring one. But I think the Texans are going to be able to get it done 13-10.
All right. Well, let's move on to one of those other games. What do you think about Steelers and Ravens? Massive game for the AFC North. If the Steelers win it, they basically all but lock it up. They go up two games and have the tiebreaker. Actually, they do clinch it. They do clinch with the win. That's correct. And meanwhile, for Baltimore, they would take the lead in the division while they tie it up, and then they would currently have the tiebreak, I believe. Maybe the Pittsburgh would still have the tiebreak. Either way, that is a massive game. Steelers clinch with the win. Baltimore needs the game to have a chance to win the division. Luke, Steelers, Ravens.
I want to go with the Steelers in this one, but if they don't have George Pickens, like I said before, their offense does not look good at all. They don't have a great receiver to be able to throw the ball to, and Russ just isn't going to be able to do it on his own. And we saw the effects of that last week against the Eagles, where they couldn't get their rush attack going either. I don't like them in this matchup. That's why the line's 6.5 points. I'd probably stay away from that line just in everything because I could see it being closer, like pretty close, but definitely the Ravens are going to get this one done.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the line, it's AFC North. It's probably going to come down to a touchdown or a field goal at the end of the game. But I like Baltimore. I think this could be the week Baltimore starts clicking, and next thing you know, everyone's going to start, you know, calling Baltimore their AFC pick. I think they're going to really show it this week. I like the Ravens to get a big, much needed win against their division rival, the Steelers. Well, Luke, then we got a whole full Sunday slate, including the Lions taking on the Bears. Anything on that game and other great games this weekend?
Yeah, let's start off in Soldier Field. The last time that the Lions won Soldier Field, I was there 2 years ago. And that's right when we hit that turnaround. So there's a little bit of magic in that stadium. Before that game, the Lions were trashed. After that game, we've been on a generational run, the best run in Lions history. And I think it's time to come back and get our revenge from last year at Soldier Field. The Lions are 4-0 in the division. We're about to make it 5-0. And we're going to prove all the haters like we can win games, especially with our offensive line in this one. That's what it's going to come down to. It's going to be a cold day up there in Chicago and the Lions are going to be able to get Gibbs going, and just enough to where we can still save him a little bit. And it'll probably be a low scoring game, but I definitely like the Lions in this one. Maybe Caleb Williams can prove me wrong and start putting up tons of points on Detroit, but I don't know. The one player I think will probably have a pretty solid game is DeAndre Swift going back up against the Lions. He had a pretty solid game their first game on Thanksgiving, and I could definitely see him gashing us a few times. But the Lions are going to be able to get this one done. The line at 6.5 is just a little bit too many points. I think it'll probably be one possession game like we saw on Thanksgiving, but give me Detroit in this one.
Yeah, I think the Bears, they kind of just got embarrassed on Monday night against Minnesota. It was ugly. It's been ugly. They're on an 8 game losing streak. So give me Detroit in that one. The one, tell me if I'm crazy or not, Luke. I'm gonna try him one more time. The Washington Commanders against Philadelphia. Philadelphia now has the longest winning streak in the NFL. It's bound to be broken, right, Luke? The Lions needed a loss. The Chiefs needed a loss before that. The Bills needed a loss recently. The Eagles, do they need a loss against a division foe? Jaden Daniels and the Commies.
I don't like this upset pick. I like the Eagles in this one. They really dominated that game against the Commanders last time, especially in the second half. And
They dominated. Washington had a lead in the fourth quarter.
I don't. Did they actually? Oh, they got those two touchdowns at the end. Yeah, but I mean, they really did dominate that game. They were the better team, and I think we're going to see more of the same. The Eagles have been on a really good run, and I like them in this one.
It was 10-6 going into the fourth quarter. Washington versus Philadelphia in the link. You like Washington? You don't like Washington though?
No, I like Philadelphia.
All right. Well, I like the Commies. Give me one last gasp at Washington. Do they still have a chance to win the division? Is that over?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I guess they still mathematically do, but I think the Eagles have a game coming up against the
Yeah, they would
Giants or
need.
Cowboys
They
soon.
have games against both of them left. But if the Eagles just drop against all three division opponents, it looks like Washington would probably have the division tiebreak. Then if they Washington wins out. No, I don't think the Commanders are going to win the division, but I do think they're going to win against the Eagles, and that's the best game I got left on the slate. Any other games you want to talk about?
Well, real quick, as we know, the Hoosiers are going to the college football playoff, and their former QB, Michael Penix Jr., is getting his first start against the Giants with the Atlanta Falcons. And what a great move by the Falcons. You got to get Kirk out of there. The rest of their team's actually pretty good, and Michael Penix is going to be able to get this offense rolling. And it's a perfect game to throw him out there against the worst team in the league and, get his bearings in the NFL before having to go up against teams and games that really matter, trying to push towards the playoffs if they still have any hope left. But let's see what Michael Penix can do. I just wanted to give him a shout out and say, I'm hammering the Falcons -8.5. The Giants look completely terrible. Their season's done. I don't even think they want to play football anymore.
Yeah, but this game matters. You said to get them ready for games that matter. This game's massive. If they lose to the Giants, their season's over. And is the Falcons team really that good? I mean, yes, Kirk has been bad, but their defense cannot rush the passer. They've given up a lot of yards to a lot of teams this season. I don't know. I mean, I think that obviously the Falcons, they just really royally screwed up and giving Kirk that much money and then drafting a quarterback. You got to hope that Penix pans out. But even still, you just threw away $90 million for 7 wins for Kirk Cousins, 7-7 through his tenure. And it's probably going to be the last time Kirk starts for Atlanta. So just sad, sad situation in Atlanta. I'm trying to, I've got some loved ones that are Falcons fans. I've got some loved ones that are Colts fans. I don't know which teams have screwed up the most in the last 7 days between Jonathan Taylor and Kirk Cousins. That's just tough situations all around.
Yeah, I hate to see it for him. But I do think Penix is a great quarterback. And hey, I mean, I feel like if he was able to play the whole year with the amount of experience he's already had in college, he could have been one of the best rookie quarterbacks in the league, even with the way Knicks and Jaden Daniels are playing this year. I think Penix is going to be able to show us a little something, and hopefully he can get some wins rolling here and maybe sneak into those playoffs.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I would love to see it. I've still got that future Chiefs, Lions, and Falcons all to win their division. Well, one team has wrapped it up. The other two need to pick it up. And I don't know if it's going to happen, but I love to see it happen. Just I don't know. I definitely don't think the Falcons are going to do it. Now I've got questions if the Lions can do it, but that
Yeah.
is my only comment there. Anything else, Luke? I'm getting a little thirsty. It's about to be 12-pack time.
I'm just hoping you can use some of that Mahomes Chiefs voodoo magic on the Vikings and make them lose a game. Maybe we would have had it locked up by now. I mean, being 12-2, you'd think that'd be enough, but I
I
guess
told you,
not.
no more pumpkin. Sam Darnold is off pumpkin watch. He was dicing up another team this week, Chicago, and those Falcons are good. I'm excited to see where they are in the 12 pack.
Yeah, right before we get to that, I say we talk about that game where they are going up against Seattle. I feel like this is going to be a pretty interesting game with the Vikings here going to sea. Vikings at sea, B. Hess. Can you believe it? It seems like they might be in their natural element here.
Yeah. Well, I think it is going to be Geno. He looks like he's back. He got banged up. If it's Sam Howell, the Seahawks are absolutely toast. Brian Flores will be itching his chops. But this is a Vikings team. Now we'll have to see how Sam Darnold does in the elements. Obviously, he was bad in New York. That's a cold, windy city. So is Seattle. But Darnold has proven the doubters wrong, I think, this year. With the way that they've got just so many weapons with Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, all the sons just out there just doing their thing. Now the Aaron Jones, it's just a really good team, and Brian Flores keeps that defense on lock. And they were just all over Caleb Williams on Monday night. They've been causing problems to everybody throughout the season. I like Minnesota to win in that one.
Absolutely, me too. I got the Vikings. That's probably my favorite bet of the week. Only minus 3 points against the Seahawks, and I could see it being easily a double-digit win against them, and really making the Seahawks try to fight next week against the Rams to win that division. And it looks like the Lions and Vikings are still going to be tied atop the division. It's most likely coming all the way down to week 18. But we'll get to that when we get to it. And you're right, Brent. I am getting a little thirsty. You think you could quench everyone's thirst with a little 12 pack right here?
Yes, it's going to be the most refreshing of the season. Last week, Luke was bragging before we started this how good his was last week, so I'll remind everybody. He had the Lions number one, they lost. Eagles number two, Bills number three, team with the best record in the NFL number four, Vikings five, Packers six, Steelers seven, Ravens eight, Rams nine, Bucks 10, Stinky Seahawks 11, and the Washington Commanders 12. Now for my 12 pack, the most refreshing and just the best 12 pack of the season. We'll start out at number 12, and it's going to the team that just took first place in their division over the last week, and that is the LA Rams. Bravo to them. They've won back to back games against the Bills and the 49ers. The questionable competition on those games. The Bills, do they have any sort of defense? Clearly not. The Niners, do they have any sort of offense? Clearly not. But, wins are wins. So the Rams, let's see them stack them up. And with Stafford, they've got a good team. They've got a good offense, at least. Very much questions about their defense if they play anybody that's not Brock Purdy and the Pumpkins. So Rams at number 12. Number 11 is Washington Commanders. I think that this is a team that is going to start refining its stride. I think it already has with a couple of wins in a row. Washington is a dangerous team. They've got to keep winning to make sure they lock in that 7 seed. They don't have that locked up yet. So I like Washington and Jaden Daniels. And I think they have a chance to get a big win here this week against Philadelphia. At number 10, I have a solid but unspectacular AFC team. They're winning their division. Nobody's really hyping them up because they're not blowing teams out, but they're just a good, solid team. That's the Houston Texans. They rush the passer well. We've already talked about CJ Stroud and Houston. Now, can they beat the Chiefs this week? It would be a defining victory for their season, even if it is against a one-legged quarterback. But Houston's good. They're 9-5. They've clinched their division. They're going to host a playoff game. So if you've already got your division locked up at this point, you've earned my respect to be a top 10 team in the league. Give me Houston at number 10. At number 9 is a team that's going to be looking to lock up their division this week. That is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh has a massive game Saturday against Baltimore. I think they got exposed a little bit against Philadelphia. Like you mentioned, without George Pickens, they really have no downfield passing game. They don't have much of an offense at that point. Their defense is solid. It's really good, but they did get pushed around by Philadelphia. So is this kind of same old Pittsburgh team that we're used to for Tomlin now? Starting to show itself that it is just, it's an above 500 team, but is it really a contender? I've got them at number 9. Number 8, a team that I do think is a contender, the Bake Show. Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers slide into my top 8 because I do think they are actually a fringe contender. I think the top 8 are teams that could make it to the Super Bowl, and I think the Bucks now are in that list that they could make it to the Super Bowl if things line up for them. So give me Tampa Bay at number 8 with Baker balling out. Then at number 7, we'll take the Green Bay Packers. Now I've been it's back and forth with the Packers. I think Love is the biggest question mark on the team. They've got a really young, talented roster, offensively, defensively. Every week it's a different wide receiver that's stepping up, making some spectacular catches. This week, Romeo Dobbs was killing it. Josh Jacobs is a really strong running back. He's been one of the top five running backs in the NFL this year, and the defense is impressive. Love is the question mark for this team. Sometimes he can be spectacular, sometimes he can be downright dreadful. So I've got the Packers at number 7. Luke, that's the bottom half of my 12 pack. How you liking it so far?
Well, it's a little tasty, not great. I think the Packers have to be in the top six. I would bump Baltimore down at the point that they're at right now in the season. I think the Packers are definitely just a more complete team overall, and I would definitely pick them to beat the Ravens if they played tomorrow. Also, I think the Rams need to be moved up ahead of both the Commanders and the Texans. I think that they're starting to, push in the right direction right now, and being 12 is just way too low for them. They started off the year 1-4, and now they've battled their way back to being, number one in the division, or at least tied for it right now with a chance to win it if they, as they control their own destiny. I think that they have to be ahead of both those teams.
Fair enough points. We'll move on. Top 6. Vikings, number 6. Sam Darnold just sneaks ahead of Green Bay. Those teams will play each other in not this week, but next week in what could be a massive game for the Vikings, who still have a chance at the 1 seed in the NFC. I just sang their praises a few minutes ago when I talked about their matchup against Seattle this week. But the question is, it's just still Sam Darnold. It's still, I mean, you take out Kevin O'Connell, fantastic coach. Take out Brian Flores, fantastic defensive coordinator. Take out Justin Jefferson, fantastic wide receiver. I get that's a lot, but that's three people on that team that really make up that team. Tell me who their next best asset is outside of O'Connell, Flores, and Jefferson. And I don't think it's anybody that's really that spectacular. So Vikings, well-run team. They've got one great player and a lot of other good players, but I don't know if that's enough to really make them a top 5 team. So Vikings at number 5. At number 4 is the Kings of the North, the Detroit Lions. Still have them ahead of the Vikings and the Packers. I just mentioned it. Their path is so narrow now. They can only win one way. They used to be able to do this. They used to be able to do that. All sorts of different ways to win. Now it's like this. Okay, let's just outscore the other team. The other team's gonna score 30 points. We've got to do an onside kick and score 35. We've got to go for fourth down and score 32. It's just gonna be tough to win games like that. I really like Detroit. I wish it was different for them. I'd love to have them higher, but when their 4 of their like 7 best players are out for the season, it's just hard for me to think that they can be higher any higher than number 5. Which brings me to the top 4 teams in the NFL currently. And number 4 is the Baltimore Ravens. This is a defense that's on the improve. And that's all they've been missing because Lamar Jackson is having his best season of his career, even better than either the 2 times he won the MVP. He's got 3 interceptions. He's got 30 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. It is remarkable what Lamar Jackson is doing this year. And okay, well, let's try to stop Lamar. What do know? They've got nothing else. Oh, wait, no, they've got the king behind him. This is a really, really good team that the Ravens are just getting better with that defense starting to come into form. I like Baltimore at number 4. Number 3 is right now the class of the NFC with a clown coach, Philadelphia Eagles. I just still think there's going to be something, even in an impressive win against Pittsburgh. This week, the Eagles defensive lineman punches a dude in the face, gets a 15-yard penalty, and Sirianni tries to go over and talk to him, and he like got bounced from a nightclub. Like Sirianni wasn't 21 yet. Goes over to try to talk to his own player, and the big defensive the big defensive line coach says, "No, man, you can't come in this club." Like, I mean, it's just unbelievable. There's always something with Philadelphia. I'm trying to find a way that is not going to be Philadelphia because it just doesn't seem like they can do it. It's just a clown show in Philly. Somebody in the NFC is going to step up and beat them. But right now, they look like the most likely team to make the Super Bowl in the NFC. Number 2 is the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo, great offense. Josh Allen probably going to win the MVP. and he probably deserves it. Had another spectacular game, making throws on the run, picking up crucial fourth downs, just just getting hit when he throws, throwing off platform. I mean, just doing a lot. Like he's playing really well. The last few games, he's kind of been on the hottest tear, I think, of his career consistently. But the defense is a major concern. They've given up 86 points over the last two games combined, and I just don't think you can win a Super Bowl that way. You're relying on Josh Allen to play like Superman every single game. We've seen over the course of his career, he ebbs and flows. He's going to have amazing games. He's going to have stinkers. And I've got the Bills at number two because they just lost 2 weeks ago. Team that hasn't lost in the last 2 weeks, the Kansas City Chiefs, they've only lost once over the past 358 days. So that'll be the Kansas City Chiefs at number one. Patrick Mahomes fighting through injuries, playing spectacularly. The defense turning everybody over. Chiefs are getting healthy now. Hollywood Brown back into the fold. Hopkins, Hollywood, X-Man, Juju. That's pretty nice wide receivers right there. Top four. Of course, you got Kelsey, who in the playoffs, last time we saw him in the playoffs, he was still just registering 100-yard games and touchdowns every time against teams that were desperately trying to cover him. I have no reason to doubt that he won't be able to do that again when it comes time. Noah Gray cooking, Pacheco back, running hard, hating grass. I mean, it's perfect. The Chiefs defense firing off. George Karlaftis with 2 sacks last week. Chris Jones is angry. Nick Bolton's intercepting balls. So is Trent McDuffie sneaking up, looking at the Jumbotron, getting picks. I mean, this is a team you got to be scared of. Kansas City Chiefs back on top in the 12 pack.
I figured you'd go that way, Brent. And, I think it's a good list for you. The only thing I would say is Baltimore has to move down. I think below the other purple team, below the Vikings, and just bump the other two teams up. Besides that, I think Lions should be at four, just with the way everything's at right now. It's hard to put them above the Eagles or the Bills. And, I'm sure you think they're better than the Chiefs too, even though I still think the Lions would be able to beat them head to head at this point. But, I think that's a pretty solid list, Brandon. Thanks for quenching my thirst on that one.
Well, I appreciate it, Luke. I knew you might have a problem with the Lions dropping out of the top four, but I just have to call it as I see it right now with the players on the field. This was going to be a totally different list. I'll be honest with you. Whenever I was doing my rough draft on the 12 pack on Monday, I thought Patrick Mahomes wasn't going to play. Then it's a totally different 12 pack with Carson Wentz as the Chiefs quarterback. But luckily, we'll save that 12 pack for the drafts because it looks like we're not going to be needing that this week. Now, once the Chiefs lock up the 1 seed and they start Carson Wentz for a week or two, I'll let you know where the Carson Wentz led Kansas City Chiefs are amongst the ranks of the 12 best teams in the NFL. But right now, there's no question, best quarterback in the world and the best team in football, Kansas City. Luke, any final thoughts on this week's Hesse Bros Pod?
Well, I definitely keep an eye on Mahomes, and either way, I'd probably take the Texans points at least plus 3.5. That seems like a good bet to me. And the Vikings money line and spread definitely is going to work this week at Seattle. Anything else from you, Brent?
I like Washington against Philadelphia. And, all my futures look like they're dying, so I need to find a new future. Tampa Bay to win the NFC plus 1,800. Pretty juicy. That might be my new pick. Buccaneers get the 3 seed. All of a sudden, they're dangerous. They might be able to get 2 home playoff games. I like the Bucks a lot going forward. And that is the Hesse Bros pod. Maybe it's a rematch. I thought, the Chiefs beat the 49ers, then they lost to the Bucks, and they beat the Eagles. And 49ers, but I thought it was going to go 49ers, Eagles, 49ers, Eagles. Maybe the Bucks are in that path. Might be time for another Chiefs Bucks Super Bowl.
Time for a loss to the Bucks again.
No, that's time they would win it though, because it's a Bake Show. Bake Show, he's good, but he's no Tom Brady.
Well, Brent, I think we all realize why all your futures are not still alive, Brent, because you're picking something like the Bucks winning the NFC. So good luck to you on that one.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment below if you love crazy picks like mine, and we'll see you next week for another Hesse Bros Pod.